Hey, kia ora. Markie here. I'm experimenting at the moment with doing videos on the trot. So my ugly mug is a little bit close to the camera because there's traffic noise and stuff, so I don't want to frighten anyone. But I think that's probably just ensures that you can hear okay. So let me know what you think about this, doing videos on the trot style. I've done three technically. One ended up as a blooper. So this is quite a serious subject. I'm not in a too crowded area at the moment because this might be a sensitive subject to just be talking about on the streets. I'm at a crossing now. So I did a video a few days ago around people who are in recovery from childhood sexual abuse, and I thought it'd be good to return to that topic and approach it from another angle. So what I wanted to talk about is, what does recovery from childhood sexual abuse look like? Okay, because people talk about recovery and people talk about getting well and stuff like that, but what does it actually look like? Now, there's an amazing kind of sky up ahead of me. I'm going to try and give you a shot of that if I can, but I'm going to need to go around a corner. So it's interesting talking about recovery, and there's shafts of light coming from the sky. Now when I turn the camera around, quite often it's difficult to get the angle right, so sometimes I kind of point things out and then you don't get them in the shot. So we'll do my best to give you... The skies here are phenomenal. It isn't even a particularly amazing one tonight. It's kind of sunsets and things are quite amazing. So I was just going to pass this tree, and then we'll give you a little shot of the sky, the big skies, and this big shaft of light that's kind of coming out from it. It looks quite kind of spiritual. I'm going to move the camera around quite a bit because we can't always capture. So you're going to get a bit of industrial buildings and seagulls and things as well. Just want to make sure you get that sky. A good omen, I think. Yeah. So, what does recovery look like? Okay, well, it's going to be a fairly short video, and I want to keep this quite simple. Obviously, it's a big subject, and we can go into it a lot more. But the thing about childhood sexual abuse is it's an abhorrent, abominable thing. Something that should never happen. That does massive amounts of psychological damage and often physical damage as well. So recovery, I think sometimes people think that you kind of forget what happened, okay, and you won't. Actually forgetting is usually, that can occur as part of psychological repression, and that's not actually healthy. I've done a video on that really. That's not a good state to be in. So remembering and being conscious is a far better place than not remembering and not being conscious of what went on. But it's always going to be an unpleasant, horrible memory, okay? Because it was an unpleasant, horrible thing. Okay. So that's kind of what... So what is recovery? So that doesn't sound very encouraging. What does recovery mean? So recovery from childhood sexual abuse means that that's all it is. It's an unpleasant, horrible memory, and it lives in the past. It's behind you, okay? And it's not impinging on the present. It's not affecting your thoughts. It's not affecting your feelings. It's not giving you nightmares or flashbacks. It's not getting in the way of your relationships or your ability to work or function. That's entirely achievable. And I'm not going to kind of sugarcoat it. It's not necessarily easily achievable. It can take years of therapy, okay, because it's big stuff, okay. But it is entirely achievable. You can get to that place, okay. And if you're watching this because you're a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, then I really hope that you do. So one model that's sometimes used, or a way of looking at it, is that you start off as a victim, then you become a survivor, and then you become a thriver. There's kind of three stages, really. So the survivor stage is, beginning to become more impact. Usually the recovery process, generally speaking, is somebody that's been sexually abused in childhood is carrying all the guilt. We've talked about this in another video. Because generally as children we want to make adults right. So if it's adults abusing us, adults are like gods when we're children, particularly parents. They're like our gods, that they have to be right and good, because we don't feel safe if they're not, because they're there to protect us and provide for us. So we have to kind of make them good, and the only option really is to make ourselves bad. So it was my fault, I'm dirty, I'm shameful. And often abusers will load loads of emotional and psychological abuse onto the children they're abusing as a way of entrapment, really, so that they don't tell anyone. They'll say, you're really bad, and you'll get me into trouble, and I'll go to prison if you tell anyone, and you'll go to prison as well. So they say some really, horrific things. So first stage in treatment, that's just somebody that actually remembers the abuse, because often it's psychologically repressed. So the first stage really is to take all that shame, all that guilt, and place it back where it belongs, with the abuser. And that can take a long time. It's a process that takes as long as it takes. Can't give you a timetable for this stuff. That's the kind of first phase of recovery. And that's the phase where somebody starts to become really angry with their abuser. Okay. And then it's a complex process, and I'm trying to kind of break it down to the bare bones. So, and then there comes a point a bit further down the line where that anger may be still there, but it's not burning in the same way. Okay, and you start to move more towards a place of peace. Okay, and that's where the video we were talking about forgiveness kind of comes in. So some people really want to get to a place of forgiveness, particularly if the offender was a loved one. You don't have to forgive, and it's really important that nobody kind of lays that on you, or that you place that expectation on yourself. You are absolutely within your rights not to forgive, and you're absolutely within your rights to forgive, as we touched on in a bit more detail in the previous video. So they're the kind of phases, really. So that's the kind of so the victim is kind of where you're still very much holding all the guilt and all the shame and all the blame. And then the survivor is you beginning to recognise that that's not yours to hold. And then the thriver is where you're really starting to make some progress, so that you get kind of external results in terms of some of the symptoms may go away. You might find that you're able to function better in life and that kind of thing. So that's what recovery looks like. Like I say, it can take a long time, but I don't want to kind of leave a kind of a doom and gloomy message. Once you start on the road to recovery, you're going to start feeling benefits. And you're going to feel some emotional pain, but you're going to start feeling benefits. So, if I say to you recovery can take years, you're going to be feeling progressively better throughout those years. Okay, so if it was on a graph, we're not looking like an easy progression. We're looking like ups and downs, and a lot of the work of therapy and getting in touch with the feelings is very painful. But ultimately, if you get onto the road to recovery and you get the right help, then you're going to start ultimately feeling better. Not just feeling better, but being able to function better in life. Because a lot of the people I've worked with, and this is really common, they're chaotic, so they're not able to hold down a job. Often they've been in and out of jail, or have been sex workers, or have been got addicted to drugs, or because this stuff does damage in so many different ways. Okay, so again, it's important not to give yourself a hard time. Or it might be milder. It might be maybe you've managed to live quite a successful life in lots of ways, but other areas, life has been really difficult and you haven't reached your potential. So, for example, somebody that's been abused, they might not, reach the potential in their career that somebody that hasn't had that experience, would have reached. It can kind of hold you back and slow you down. So, message I want to leave you with is recovery is entirely possible. Recovery isn't forgetting. Recovery is when the past is in the past and it's no longer affecting you in the present. And the journey to recovery is full of ups and downs, but broadly speaking, it's ups. So it's a kind of, it's difficult to illustrate this with my finger really, but it's a wiggly line that goes upwards. So there will be ups and downs. It will be a roller coaster, but essentially it's a roller coaster that heads in a positive direction. So I hope that's helpful. I'm happy to do more on this topic. I think it's a really important topic because it just does so much damage. And worked with a lot of people and seen what this kind of stuff does, and it gets me really cross when people minimise it as well. And the other thing, just to leave you with, is never minimise sexual abuse. Never say, oh well, he never raped me, he just touched me through my clothes. Sexual abuse is sexual abuse, and you can't compare one form of sexual abuse to another. Okay, it might feel like you can, but it's not the actual external event, it's the emotional impact. So somebody that might have been abused several times in a penetrative way might actually cope better in life and and suffer fewer less trauma and fewer symptoms than somebody that maybe it's not even contact abuse, because sexual abuse doesn't have to be contact. Sometimes sexual abuse can be, where kids are made to watch things and stuff like that. So it's all bad, it's all damaging. Okay? There's no such thing as kind of mild sexual abuse, really. So don't play it down, okay? If you've been sexually abused, that's a big deal, that's a horrible thing. It wasn't your fault. It's never a child's fault. And, there is hope. And there is recovery. So I'm going to leave it there because I'm getting into town now, and it's not really a good kind of topic to be talking about. It might potentially be triggering people, because it's the other thing is it's really common. It's more common than you think, this stuff, which is horrific, really. So crossing the road now, try not to get run over. So I hope that has given you a clear direction that if you are a victim, you can work your way towards survivor and thriver, and if you're a survivor, you can work yourself, further into recovery. And I wish you all the very best with that. You're a good person, you're not bad, and you do not deserve to hold all this pain. God bless you, Rangimarie.